All right, you guys, we have one more bit of movie news to cover today, and that is this. You may have heard, oh man, you may have heard about the lawsuit between Scarlett Johansson and Disney. To put it as succinctly as I can explain, pre-pandemic, Scarlett Johansson signed a contract with Disney. Sorry, there's a whole bunch of scratching sounds going on right now. My cat's trying to get out of the room. Scarlett Johansson signed a contract with Disney to do the movie Black Widow. She was going to be paid X amount of money, but also some of the money that she was going to be paid was contingent on the film having a theatrical release. How much money is this movie going to make at the box office? And then what is going to be the turnaround time from the film being shown in theaters until the time it comes out on like a streaming home video digital release, right? VOD or PVOD, as the case may be. Before the pandemic, there were all these rules, there were all these stipulations, there were all these regulations, right? And also contracts were dependent on how previous agreements have been curated. So just because the Black Widow contract or agreement didn't have anything saying, well, you know, in case we move it directly to streaming. No, because at the time, the precedent, if you look at Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, any of these films, the precedent had already been set. So when the precedent was already there, that you have a certain amount of time and that there's a certain amount of money that is paid, which has direct correlation with the box office, to the actors, to the director, to the producer, whoever, right? That precedent has already been laid out. So in future contracts, you don't need to specify what those things are. I'm sorry, I'm going on way too long about this Black Widow thing, but it's important to understand. Minerva, knock it off. Sorry, my cat is really causing a commotion right now. So when the pandemic hit, Disney felt that it was better for them to release Black Widow both on streaming, like on premium streaming, and in the theaters simultaneously. Well, that's not the agreement that they signed with Scarlett Johansson. That's also not the deal that they signed with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for Jungle Cruise. But guess what? They reached out to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and said, hey, we want to keep you happy. So they renegotiated the terms of their contract. It's understandable to say that, you know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson he has to renegotiate a deal. He can't say, nope, this was the original agreement, because we're living in a pandemic. Everything has changed. Nobody could have anticipated this. Nobody. So what happened is when Scarlett Johansson reached out to Disney and said, hey, I want to renegotiate my deal, Disney was like, nope, no thanks, we're good. Which now sets a precedent. Is it about Scarlett Johansson getting more money? No, it's not about, I mean, yes, on the surface it's about that. But at the heart of this whole thing, that it's not about Scarlett Johansson got paid $20 million. She needs more money. Harumph. It's not about that. It's about Disney setting a precedent saying, oh, we don't need to hold up our end of the bargain. We don't need to fulfill our contract. Meh. You think you can boss us around? You think that you can hold us to the terms of the agreement that we set? Nah. So now let's fast forward a little bit. Here we have the Russo brothers. The Russo brothers very much want to work with Disney again. Disney very much wants to work well with them. The Russo brothers don't necessarily make great movies outside of the Marvel Disney Sometimes you need those that structure and those restrictions in place to make great films, right? And that just kind of so happens to be the case with the Russos. So the Russos really want to work with Disney, Marvel, and Disney Marvel really wants to work with the Russos because they make great movies under their guidance and big box office numbers, right? So they want to work together again. Everybody wins. But now the Russo brothers is looking at this situation with Black Widow and saying, hang on a second. You've altered the deal. Like, you're changing the terms at your whim, and you're not being held responsible for it. You're not being held accountable for it. Scarlett Johansson, her lawyers, her team, that whole group of people, they're trying to hold Disney accountable, and Disney's just trying to be like, meh. Now, legally, Disney doesn't have a leg to stand on. They do not have a leg to stand on. They're not going to win this. It's going to be dragged out over many years, I assume, the way Disney's been acting. Now, when I say Disney, is this the entire Disney Corporation? Kind of, and I say kind of because there's new Disney management. Bob Chapek. So when Bob Iger stepped down as CEO of the company, he still remained on as head of the board of directors, but he stepped down from being CEO. He gave the day-to-day operations of CEO to Bob Chapek, and it was supposed to be this huge passing of the torch, which it kind of was, you know. But Bob Chapek hasn't handled a lot of situations very well. Now, Bob Chapek, his response to this has just been that corporate, nope, this is it. We're going to do our thing. You can't boss us around. You can't tell us what to do. Speaking of bossing around and telling people what to do, Minerva, hey, no. Again, apologies. My cat is throwing a temper tantrum. So, where does this leave the Russos? Well, right now, as has been reported in the Wall Street Journal, I think the Wall Street Journal was the first news outlet to kind of break the story. The Russos have stepped back from negotiations with Disney because they don't know if Disney's going to change the terms. They did with Scarlett Johansson, and so far her team has not been able to hold Disney accountable. I mean, like I said, they're going to lose. Disney's going to lose this lawsuit, but it has soured the grapes forever with Scarlett Johansson. And now other people are starting to take notice. Other people, huge heavy hitters for Disney, for Marvel, with the Russos. They're starting to be like, and again, as reported in the Wall Street Journal, their negotiations have hit an impasse. They've hit an impasse because the Russos don't want whatever film that Disney wants them to make for them to go on streaming, or directly to streaming rather. But I think that's kind of where Disney wants to take this. And the Russos are not okay with that. The Russos 1,000% are not okay with that, and they've hit an impasse. Disney doesn't want to budge, and the Russos don't want that to be the case. They both want each other. I dare say they both need each other. But they've hit a huge block in the road, and everybody's got their eyes on this Black Widow Scarlett Johansson thing, lawsuit, and it's, I mean, so this is kind of where we're at right now, right? We don't know what the Russos are going to do. We don't know specifically what Disney's going to do. Maybe this whole thing with the Russos is going to help Disney take their heads out of their patooties, Bob Chapek, and give credit where credit is due. They should. That's what they need to do. They need to make a public apology. They need to more than help out and renegotiate this deal with Scarlett Johansson, and then put very specific verbiage into place with their new talent, like the Russos and other future directors that they get. They really need to have some assurances to let people know that this is not how Disney does business. Disney doesn't, I mean, they currently are changing terms of their agreement willy-nilly, as evidenced with Scarlett Johansson. But they, like other creatives, need assurances if they're going to work with Disney that Disney's not going to change the terms of the deal, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. That's a huge deterrent. That's a big problem for Disney. It's a big problem for Disney. Anyway, you guys, I've kind of talked about this ad nauseum for a little while. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are about this whole situation. Do you think the Russos should just suck it up and just sign the contract and say, look, we know who we are. We need the work, so we're going to put in the effort? Or do you think Disney's in the wrong? Do you think Bob Chapek is in the wrong? I mean, I can see this from multiple angles, but I got to be honest, like, man, having worked and still work for a major corporation where it's easy to get lost in the numbers, the people who are in charge, the head honchos, they kind of do what they want, and it doesn't matter who they step on to get where they want to go. And having been on the receiving end of that, I'm not okay with that. I am not okay with that. But anyway, guys, like I said, I want to hear your thoughts and feelings. Jump on down to the comments section below. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Luke Skywalker would want you to do. Da 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 dun dun da 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 dun dun.